Hello and welcome everyone to this amazing panel. My name is Andrea Camargo. I'm the founder of Refi Collective, an organization based in Bogota, Colombia. We basically connect the entrepreneurial impact ecosystem in Latin America. Super happy to be here with you all. Let's start with intro of Erin. You want to go?
Hello. Hi, everybody. Loving this. So I'm Erin Catrone. I am a licensed therapist out of New York State. I have moved more into the coaching realm to give a little bit more access to kind of break some of the limitations that I see happening in the mental health fields. I work a lot with the nervous system. So, what I've really simplified my work to be is nervous system awareness and nervous system training, so we can start to understand how the systems that we move from shape the world that we're reading, the cues that we take in. And I use a lot of like the no gatekeeping language is I think we all need this and I don't want to hold it. So allowing myself to move into what I've called the space opens this up that we can cross state lines, that there's a lot less from the provider and nuances, that this information can just be available wherever people are around the world. So I found that to be just something I had to shift over to teach this information. And I'm so excited to be here with you all. I can't wait to meet you all and share this conversation.
Awesome introduction, Erin. Thank you so much. Maybe Michelle, you want to go?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle. I am based in Washington, D.C. I'm the owner of two pretty unique companies. One is called Busy Mom Playdates, which is a women-centered travel group. So mental health and access is a really big part of that because there's a lot of mental struggle and guilt that comes to even allowing yourself permission to travel. And the second is an AI agency that bridges the two for women that are looking to, change industries or just looking to upskill in this time where things are slightly different. So kind of like in the crossroad of two different things, which is pretty cool. Really excited to be on here with you all and talk mental health and access because it's a huge discussion in my community.
Amazing. Thank you, Michelle. Mary?
Hi, everyone. I am a former journalist and radio presenter. I work in healthcare through hypnotherapy and different therapies, and as a consultant, moving towards healthcare and AI and VR and augmented reality and the such. So I've been on GatherVerse before. I love being on GatherVerse. It really inspires me to see so many beautiful, wonderful, intelligent people sharing their experiences in life. And I hope to continue working with you guys to making a difference for the future.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, this is definitely a very beautiful community. And I also feel I learned so much from everyone I talked to here. Letitia?
Hello. Good afternoon, wherever you all are. But I'm Letitia B. Russell. I am an emotional well-being coach consultant and also an HR consultant. And so I help leaders who are really, I always say those folks that look amazing on paper, right? They have it all together on paper, but they're in private and they're struggling. And so I really bridge the gap between just how do you show up in person, but still being strategically authentic for yourself. And so started this journey, B2C space, right? Helping women find who they are beyond the trauma that they've been through. And then over the last several years, I have then moved into the space of now helping leaders and executives find out really who they are beyond the title, behind the office, behind the salary that they also make. And then the last thing is I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Awesome, Leticia. Yeah, in connecting with the human being beyond the tag,
Yep.
it's super important in all the aspects of our life. And we also have Malaysia. Sorry, how do you pronounce your name correctly?
Oh, thank you, Andrea. And I'm so happy and excited to be with all of you. My name is Malaysia Harrell, and I am based out of Maryland. So, very excited to be here. I'm a board certified psychotherapist, spiritual transformation coach, veteran, keynote speaker, and the founder of Blissful Life Consulting and the Malaysia Harrell Foundation. And my work really centers around supporting individuals living with invisible disabilities and the often unseen impact of trauma, especially within high achieving professionals and veterans. I practice trauma informed, culturally responsive, and faith based integrated care, helping people heal beyond survival and reconnect with their purpose, identity, and wholeness. And I really believe that healing happens when we honor our mind, body, and spirit together. So, not just one component. So, looking holistically. And again, I am just so excited about this opportunity to connect with such amazing, amazing people who are in this space and advancing the work that we do.
Thank you, Malaysia. I feel like it's not going to be like a very technical conversation, but also kind of spiritual and more holistic. So I'm super excited. Ariel, you want to go?
Hello and good morning. My name is Ariel Wilson Benedio. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I am a motivational speaker, life coach, and the author of The Feeling of Healing that will be out in third quarter of this year. Woot, woot. What I do is help people shift their perspective, embrace personal power, and live a life of purpose. The goal is to take suicide off the table for every human being. And the way that we do that is to show people that they truly have a purpose and a why. And that's why I show up each day. So I've been doing this for over a decade. I served as a clinical director. I've also served as a care coordinator in South Central LA. I'm based locally in Southern California. And essentially, my goal and purpose is to just serve and to create a space where people feel seen and heard and are able to embrace their personal power.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ariel. And I think we're missing Pauline. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. It's so exciting to be here. So my name is Pauline Dugald. I am based out of Canada, and I am an analytical creative. I started as an artist. I spent many, many years in corporate professions of all sorts. And 6 years ago, I embarked upon starting a business that is focused on peak performance. By combining my years of analytical experience plus creativity, I have been studying and then working with people to activate their passion, to activate their creativity and their lateral thinking, which is essential for this day and age when we are faced with so many systems and data overload. I find that the burnout is more prominent than ever. And so I work with people who are already on the verge of starting their transition towards integration of different sides of themselves, because everybody has analytical and creative side, but I provide the tools and understanding of how it all goes together, because I spent so many years in project management and analytical professions that deal with systems thinking. Now I am translating that for human behavior. How does it look like in real life when you're trying to approach it from a creative perspective? And it is especially applicable to women because we do a lot of things. And there are certain things that are best to be done when you have certain resources, and there are other things that are harder. And so in this day and age of excessive data overload, it's easy to lose track of what your creativity is. And so I try to remind people that they have capacity for much greater things if they shift their perception and their understanding and how they do things. So that's what I do with my focal point and my goal now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Pauline. I also work a little bit with systems thinking, so I'm super excited to know more about your work. And everyone here, I think, has a very diverse background to support a very interesting conversation. So let's go to our first question. Um, where do health system unintentionally exclude women? And if anyone wants to jump in for answering this one, you're free to do so. If not, I will call someone. Yeah, Michelle, and then Pauline.
Sure. So I think that honestly, health systems are often focused on mainly the childbearing ages. Honestly, as a woman of getting to be of a woman of a certain age, I'm realizing that after childbearing years that things start to drop off a little bit. And then those like perimenopause, menopause conversations don't really, they're not really top of mind in the healthcare system. In my community, I think that's my community is for Gen X women of color. So oftentimes this is the one conversation we have together, primarily because it isn't something that they find that they're able to speak to their doctors about, or there really isn't a huge focus in the healthcare system regarding those things. So that's a little bit of my position regarding that.
Yeah, you're right. I think here in Colombia, at least, in medical professionals don't talk about this. You know, this phase um, of women that can be really, really productive and also very creative. But we kind of, I personally don't, but we eventually experience some changes in our body and we don't talk about it too much. Pauline?
So I want to bring to your attention 3 instances where the women are excluded. Number one is the research and evidence. We have heard for many years the specifics and statistics for autism in children, but most of the research has been done in male population. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but that's been the thing. Most of the research that we draw conclusions from has been conducted on the male population. And the second one is diagnostics. Whenever the diagnostics are ran, it is biased towards males as well. Maybe because the mass is bigger and they're trying to overcompensate. I'm not sure. I don't know that information, but has been one pattern that has showed up. And the third one is design of the equipment. Even the test dummies, even the cuffs for blood pressure, things like that have been known to be designed for men and not for women. Especially women have very small features and there needs to be an adjustment, but that hasn't quite caught up in many areas yet. So that's the bigger idea that I have and perception of how women so far have been excluded. And I don't think it's intentional. It's just due to design constraints, and I believe it's for reasons of saving money. Because if you're making it something bigger, you can probably reduce it in size. But if you make something smaller, it's harder to increase the size for a bigger person. But that has been definitely affecting women.
Yeah, definitely this probably male dominant paradigm of how we see the world affected not only the results in terms of data, but also how we designed all the healthcare system, the wellness and mental health systems and practices, you know. And as a personal experience, when I was studying veterinary medicine, we often, I mean, probably most of my cohort were women, but all of our teachers, or most of our teachers on that generation, were male. And so it was like this. Sometimes we shocked because they had a very different way of treating the patients than women did. You know, so I think that's also really, really interesting. All right, let's go to our next question. Which leadership signals discourage women from being open about their well-being?
If I can,
Leticia or Mary, you go.
I think specifically for the US, right? I'll kind of tailor my response to specifically being in the US. But, I think leaders reward endurance over like sending that clear message of I'm exhausted, right? Or I'm burned out. And so they reward the person that works countless hours. They reward the individuals that skip their PTO. They reward individuals that, are just simply pushing through how they feel, right? And so when I think about high performance, I think they're praised for being and pushing through exhaustion. They're praised for skipping through, okay, I need to take care of myself today, because they are always on, and that's what the expectation are. And so as women, I do truly believe that we learn that well-being is a liability, right? We learn that if I don't say anything or really say how I feel, then they'll continue to rely on me to do things, right? And that really showcases my worthiness. And so sometimes it's tied to them being worthy of a certain role. And so silence from leaders or leadership around their own stress, I believe they reinforce that idea because it equals weakness. And so again, I'll speak specifically just from the US perspective, but we see that all the time. And so as I'm training or coaching ladies, it's, well, I can't be vulnerable, right? I can't show up and say that today I'm not well, because they tie that to maybe I'm not worthy of the position that I'm in today.
Yeah, definitely. Here in Colombia as well, in Latin America, we have the same expectations from industries. I think it goes Mary, and then Pauline, and then Ariel. Yeah.
Sorry, I would agree and follow through with Leticia, being that women have the extra burden of being expected to be people pleasers. That is just, it's inbuilt in our system, actually, in our DNA. And in actual fact, that 70% of healthcare workers are female. However, only about 25 to 30% are in leadership roles. So you have leaders who have the kind of attitude, I don't want to say men, but it is what it is, but that have the attitude of, well, we've got to get work done and you're here to do work. So your problems with your children, your problems with your family, whatever it is, it's not our problem. You want to be equal, you got to keep up with the big boys. So that is one of the problems, is that leadership roles have to be a little bit more even, and also in ratio in terms of surveys, like you were saying, that there are things made for male bodies instead of females. Things need to be separated more. That it needs to be sex disaggregated, that it's separated, where they are doing specific research for females of certain ages throughout different work positions, etc. So I think that is a big problem. And now that we're working online, it's a big problem, because now we're really not going into the office as often. A lot of people have completely converted to being nomads, digital nomads. And that is a problem, because you are really being neglected. So my 2 cents.
Thank you for that statistics. And also in the investment space, we see these kind of very different percentages of women and men that are taking the investment decisions, right? Probably less than 5% of investment decisions are took from women. So we need to start leveling that up. I think it was Pauline and then Ariel.
Yeah, just circling back to that same concept of lack of visible vulnerability in the workplace in general, I'd like to zoom out a little bit and showcase how the fact that current leadership models are based on the warrior mindset. It's all about competition. It has been all about competition, about strength, about showing the strength, which does not leave any space for vulnerability. But what we're moving into is the movement towards connectivity. And so it's a radical shift. The more women are entering workforce, the more they are joining the leadership ranks, they are adding more connectivity focus. And that's going to take a while to shift from that mindset of strength and mindset of competition and showing yourself as a strong person versus actually seeing where connections need to be made in order for the whole system to be holistically harmonious. So that's how I want to show it.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Ariel.
Yes, I was gonna just everybody's saying brilliant things. And just to kind of piggyback, what comes to my mind is the linear life path that we're expected to follow, right? However, like when it comes to childcare or pregnancy or maternity leave, it really does affect that life path. And I'm currently on maternity leave. I had a baby 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. However, I 2 years ago I opened a 30-bed licensed facility for acute mental health, and I was a clinical director. However, I had to put my personal life on hold to be able to do that because my counterpart, he was male, and he had no expectations or no vision of having children. So he was working 24/7, right? And I was expected to do the same for my facility. And essentially, I had to step away from that position and step away from my baby so that I could have a baby. And that was, I think, it's really something that affects leadership. Like I had a spot at the table, but I was sacrificing so much to have that spot because the expectation is that we show up in the same way as our counterparts. And we can, and we actually do, I think, outperform them when we are showing up. It's just how do you find the balance? And the expectation is like there is no balance. You give yourself to work if you want to show up and have that role. And that's been my personal experience and what I've seen in the workplace. So I've excelled and moved up to the leadership position, but quickly realized that in order to have the life I desire, we have to curate it and become my own boss and do the things that I need to do to move forward.
Wow. I just, with what you just said, I think we see pattern that also connects to the economy, right? Because this traditional work we do in our businesses, in our industries, supports the economy in some way. But when we talk about the caring actions, the caring practices of raising a child, pregnancy, all of this, it's not necessarily included in the economy equation. And so it brings like this question to my mind, like how can we value for more than for money all this work women do, right? We're not giving it the attention and the importance it should have.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to this question. Which organizational patterns best predict women leadership burnout? Yeah, Leticia?
So can you tell I'm passionate about this piece and burnout? But I think there are so many, right? It's hard to think about just three because I do think some of these things are rooted in how we were brought up as women, right? They're rooted in trauma. And whether we say it out loud or not, I firmly believe that's where a lot of this it starts from. So first, as women, right, we're given more responsibility, right? Get it done by any means necessary. But we're given all of the responsibility with very little power to push back, right? So we're saying, or they're saying to us, I expect you to do X, Y, and Z, but the expectation is not that we push back, it's that we get it done, right? They're expected to, or we're expected to carry the load, and we're expected to solve the problems and say yes, even when our plate is full. Think about even home. Because I always say, no matter how much as women we try to compartmentalize things, no matter how much we say work is work, right? I'm gonna keep that there. And whatever happens at home, that's what's there. they mesh together, right? They very much collide. And so as women, we are the ones, whether husbands in the home or not, but we're the ones that we're navigating children. We're sometimes caring for our aging parents. We're doing all of the things. And so now you think about work and you're expected to do and handle so much more, right? Second, I think women, we're often doing a lot of the invisible work, right? We're managing emotions. We're smoothing over the conflicts that happen. We're holding things together. And it's expected, rarely, it's rarely named, right? And never rewarded. And I think the third thing when I think about it is we're promoted into visibility without protection. And what does that mean, right? We are seen and we're evaluated and we're relied on, but rarely do we or are we given that psychological safety, right? Do we feel supported? Do we have people that are cheering for us? Sometimes we do, right? I don't want to make it seem as if we don't. Sometimes we do. But when you compare us to that of our male counterparts, it's always they got it, right? They can get it. And so I think burnout really isn't about working too much, but I do believe it's about living in a system where we are asked we are asked to do things and rarely support it. And so the two just don't match.
Thank you.
I said a whole lot.
No, that was amazing. I think, Mary, you had something to add here. No? Okay, sorry. Malaysia?
Just repeating that it's in our DNA, and we have to understand that we are physically and psychologically and genetically different than males. And it isn't, because someone has to take care of the young. That is what it is. There are great men out there that do a great job, but it's in our DNA. That's all I'm saying. So we have to work around that, where there's more in the workplace, there's more support for that, where there's integration of childcare, there's integration of social time and whatever else there is. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt someone else's. Go ahead.
No, perfect. Thank you, Mary. Yeah, Pauline, go ahead.
I just want to bring up an example that if you ever watched the movie Barbie, there is a scene where the America Ferrera, the actress, has a monologue about how it's impossible to be a woman. You have to be thin, but not too thin. You have to have kids, but you can't talk about them. You have to make money, but you can't make too much money. There's always these double standards that we're facing with as women, and especially in leadership. You have to be assertive, but you can't be too aggressive or you're going to be called names. And so those things definitely always lead to burnout, because it's impossible to navigate this duality like that has been presented with no solutions for best outcome, really.
Yeah, Malaysia, go ahead. And I think Ariel and then Erin.
Yes, I think I'm excited about this because I think this conversation is so powerful and I'm learning from you ladies at the same time. Letitia, you just hit everything on that nail. I just want to add to this just a little bit from a perspective of someone who's worked in those very high leadership roles, working for the Surgeon General of the United States, being the addictions medicine director for the Department of Defense and working directly with the White House. I mean, we've all been in it and we've all seen it and we've all worked with people who've been in these situations. And what I will add is that women, we're expected to lead, we're expected to nurture and stabilize systems. And when we're giving so much, that energy that we give is not always reciprocated. And so therefore burnout is going to be completely inevitable because you're giving and you're not seeing the benefit of, the energy and the work that you've given. And so there are three things that I think, might contribute as well. And we talked about being the emotional, giving that compassion, but I think we're over relied on emotionally. And so Yes, women become the unspoken caretakers of the team, holding everything together, conflict, managing morale. Just look around us who are in the United States, especially close to the DC area right now, and mentoring others and absorbing that emotional labor. And it's rarely named, or even exemplified. And so we don't get compensated for that, right? There's no price for that of what we give. Secondly, women are under resourced structurally. We just don't have the resources available. Many of you have talked about this, having to do things on both sides of the coin, right? We're also community leaders, not just for our jobs, not just for our households. And so women are given expansive responsibilities without adequate staffing, authority, right? Budget. Yeah. And institutional support. So the expectation is always excellence without infrastructure. And that's pretty much a huge problem that we see. And then thirdly, many systems reward, what word do we have? Resilience. I don't know if we overuse the word resilience, but I call it self-sacrifice. And that is not sustainable. And so women start to, experience things on an emotional and physical level. We don't always feel safe, as others have said, to talk about things. So we're always praised for just giving so much, being that resilient person. Sometimes we do get rewarded and get put in these leadership positions. But what I've seen with my own eyes is women are a lot of times put in these leadership positions, but they don't actually have the, they're put in the positions, but they're more so just the face of it, but they're not the ones making the full decisions. So what happens? They get all of the backlash when they weren't the ones who were really there to be able to make those decisions. So they don't have the willpower for the decision makings, but they're held responsible for the outcome. So I just think it's very important for people to understand that. Not everybody sees that. They think, oh, I'm Condoleezza Rice, and what you get held, you get set holding the bag when things hit the fan. So.
Well, amazing. Thank you for that, Malaysia. Ariel, go ahead.
Yes, I'm like, yes, everything. What came to my mind is responsibility without authority, right? And so often we're put in place and we have to do the emotional labor, the crisis management, and the cultural holding, right? Like we create the culture, we create the space, it trickles down from our leadership, right? However, there's not, like you said, the infrastructure in place to protect us. There's not the authority in place for us to actually put our foot down when we want to draw the line. It's like we draw the line, but they still push it back, right? And so being able to recognize that when you have all of this responsibility, you have that emotional labor that you're doing on all fronts. I think it is important that we mention that women are so dynamic and we are multifaceted and we're wearing so many hats, right? Like we're taking a hat off, I feel like every hour, and problem solving in that way, but not getting the support or the authority to be able to back up all of this responsibility. So I do think that leads to the burnout much quicker. And for me personally, I feel like that's what led to my burnout quicker than my counterparts.
Thank you, Ariel. Yeah, Irene, go ahead.
No, I'm just loving this conversation and it's so on point. I probably couldn't add too much to what you all have said. But seeing the work that I do, I specialize in trauma, but through the lens of the nervous system and seeing it in the holistic lens, it's systemic, right? A lot of these systems are masculine in nature, the pace in which they're moving and everything that you all have named. But you touched on that important aspect of safety in these spaces, whether it's leadership, whether it's the work, when we're talking about childbearing, when we're talking about our finances, our job security, all of that is going to set off that survival system. So whether it is passed on, whether it is something that is a school of medicine in the health field, or just these systems, really starting to lean into. And I love this because you see here how much power and women are bringing forth. Like, we need to bring this into some of these systems. What are we missing? That caring and nurturing and vulnerable space, right? Like, really being, I call it, that's the conscious leadership that I'm working with in my staff. And I ask, limited permit holders and what they're expected to hold. And there's such unrealistic expectations. When you hear it, you're like, that is not even feasible. But what do? We do it because it's survival. Women will tend to jump into performance, people pleasing. We do protective mode, and then we turn to silence. And we're not talking about this. So I love this because we're opening conversations, especially for young women coming into this world, that these are just the expectations, that we start to break this open. It's not feasible. This is why we burn out. This is why we get to these places. So really, just seeing that through that lens of that nervous system, that we are in that survival when we know our job depends on it, versus speaking up over our capacity and our realistic limits. So, a lot of these systems I just break down into understanding, how do we get our systems into more safety? We need more conversation. We need more vulnerability. We need that conscious leadership to say, I recognize my burnout. I'm not overriding it. I'm allowing the space for you to have that too. And we need this across the board, I'm sure you know.
Yeah. And I want to do a follow-up question, because I noticed like we all feel connected to this burnout experience. So how did you in your personal life kind of went through that and overcome this burnout? Was it in community? Was it with your family, like doing a certain activity? Yeah, Malaysia, go ahead. And then Michelle.
So I'm not gonna get real long-winded on this one, but it's very near and dear to my heart. I came back from deployment with sepsis, and I've been doing mental health almost 3 decades now. And so I'd never been hospitalized in my life, doing races all over the world, bodybuilding. And when I was finally hospitalized because I was having extreme pain, after 4 days, they told me, Captain Harrell, again, I'm captain slash colonel at Walter Reed Medical Center, we can't find anything. We're sending you home today, and we're sending a psychiatrist in to evaluate you. So for me, doing the work that I've done for so long, it put me in a sense of understanding what my clients and what our people, the people that we serve, have gone through. And so it was very difficult, because you feel like my whole life was dedicated to serving this country. And when I needed help, you told me I needed a psychiatrist. And so the reason how I got through that was with faith. And so I'm doing my dissertation on that now. I'm about to graduate with my PhD in mind body medicine, adding on to the mental health component. But I will tell you that I'm doing faith and healing, because it is a spiritual component. You mentioned this earlier, that is not always talked about. So when we talked about a male-centered field, right, and primarily maybe white Anglo-Saxon male, you're discounting so many other entities that are served by this as well. So for me particularly, I would say faith would be the top one.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing, Malaysia. I don't know if it was Michelle or Erin. Michelle, and then Erin. Go ahead.
So I definitely second that. I think faith is definitely number one for me, has been number one, and community was the second piece for me. I think oftentimes burnout happens amongst us, and we kind of hold it in, and we think that the burnout is something attributed to us overdoing, or sometimes we take in these I'm trying to find the word, but oftentimes we think that it's a silent and a sometimes alone process. We're often very alone in this space of burnout. For me, community was how I was able to gather with other people that understood what it was. So I have also gone through my own moments of burnout, and it's actually how I started the company, my travel organization that I have now, because I realized I wasn't the only one and I needed a village. And the whole time I thought it was just me. Then I started having more conversations with other people in, other spaces and realizing, wait a minute, this is a huge thing. This isn't just me going through burnout, raising my kids, being the Uber driver, doing all of the things, working in corporate America. And then through that, I was able to manage, but also learn from other women that were experiencing it and have also overcome, in addition to faith, of course.
Thank you, Michelle. Erin, and then Letitia.
Oh, I just wanted to add, that is so much in being in mental health. I've been a licensed clinician for 20 years before I moved over into this coaching world and in many, many different settings. And what I speak to now is what I call the hidden language of symptoms, right? That part of that is pathologizing. And there's no pathology when we welcome those symptoms in and understand them. So I speak a lot to that, but so much of it, especially for women, is based in suppression. Right? I'm alone in this. No one else knows about this. And we hold it and hold it and hold it. So that community aspect and engaging in that social element or social engagement is part of the safety system. So it's like a bottom-up approach. When we start to bring that community aspect in, now we can access what I call the higher thinking, the higher heart. That's where everything starts to turn back online. So I think that's a huge element where healthcare, we can start to bring this into, or all of the systems. But I love the faith piece and the spirituality piece. I speak so much to this because what most people don't understand of psyche, of psychology, they think the psyche is the study of the mind. But the etymology of psyche is life and breath and soul. And I speak to that so much because so many of our wellness models are not incorporating any of that. That's why I use the breath. That's why we have that soul work. It's inevitably going to come back to a spirituality and faith. So I love that you found that's the entry point back to self. These are huge pieces missing from a lot of our systems. And that's all I wanted to share.
I love it. Thank you so much. Letitia? Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. I was getting ready to have an entirely long conversation. But for me, it was personal, right? I had to finally do what I teach. And I was in corporate for, goodness, almost 30 years. And talking about burnout, for me, when I talk about trauma, my biological father told me that I would never amount to anything, right? And that was at the age of 16. And so all my life, I was always like, okay, I'm gonna get these degrees and if I make this salary, I was always chasing something, but rarely did I sit still and lean into the things that I was feeling. I was so busy chasing those accomplishments, right? And when I finally clicked the box and got this accomplishment, it wasn't good enough. People would say, oh my goodness, I'm so proud of you. You did this. Yeah, thank you. Now let me move on to the next. So I never took an opportunity to lean into the very success that I was already sitting in. And so while community was there, that wasn't the time for me to fully take advantage of it. I needed to sit in silence to say, you know what? You did that. You know what? The things that you've accomplished, you did this for you, not because you were so busy trying to prove it to someone else. And so I think the burnout came because it was self-inflicted, because I was so busy chasing what somebody told me that I couldn't do.
Yeah, acknowledging what you accomplished and being in that present moment, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Just being kind of feeling enough already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, we have some 3 more minutes here in our conversation. So just wanted to see if you have a last advice for women listening to this amazing panel for them to improve their mental health, their well-being, their spirituality, their faith in all of this of what we've talked today. Yeah, Ariel, and then Mary.
Okay. So the last piece I always like to tell my clients is the most important thing is to find your why, right? Nobody else can create that why. Nobody else can tell you what that why is. And that why is your purpose. And purpose is not found, it's created. And we create it through identifying our personal values and making sure that our actions align with our personal values. And on a daily basis, we check in with ourselves because those values can change based on the season of life you're in.
Yeah.
And so making sure that each day you show up with actions that align with the values that you desire. And that's how we get to be the human beings and the women that we desire. And so step into your purpose and create it by through actions on a daily basis.
Beautiful. I completely agree. Go ahead, Mary.
So actually, I've been reading a really interesting book called The Alphabet of Belonging, and it's very good because even as a therapist, I tend to try to do everything internally by myself and to, like the people pleaser. But I found that actually community is a big part of it, and that includes community at work, community with family. Having these friendships. Women, we need to start taking care of each other again and not turn into the men who are competitive. We need to work together. This is what's also in our DNA, that we raise the children together, we go to the well together, we harvest together, we hunt together, and we need to get back into that mentality of this is not a competition. We are supporting each other because we have to belong to survive. So I would say start being okay with opening up. And if people judge, maybe that's because they are mirroring some darkness in themselves, the shame of, expressing themselves, or the shame of been told not to be weak. But being strong has a lot to do with communication, and communication is how we survive as a people. So I would say let's get back into pushing programs that bring more togetherness and more organizations that work in group therapies, online self-expression, physically meeting up. It's so important. I create groups all over the place called adventure clubs, and they're really just about getting people out and just having fun, just doing something crazy or just doing something quiet, but just being in it together. That's how we relate. That's how we heal. That's how we move forward.
Wow, so beautiful. Letitia, we have 1 minute and then we close up with you.
Thank you. So, the advice that I would say is pay attention to what your body and your emotions are telling you before you totally try and explain it away, right? Exhaustion is not a weakness. Needing support is not a weakness or failure. And so if you find yourself succeeding in environments that require you to abandon yourself to survive, the answer is find you another room. And I firmly believe that people and things are in your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And so you have to be able to determine if that season is up and if that person's season is up or thing, right? And so that's the advice that I would give.
Well, you girls all touched my heart today. I'm very, very grateful for this conversation. We're always learning and healing together and growing together. Super happy to meet you all today. Let's stay in touch, please. And let's continue with our beautiful summit, She Summit, Superhero Engine. I think it's a great title for this summit. Thank you all so much. And our gather was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.